In the cold junk fields of planet Vareth 9, silence lived like a ghost. Between broken metal and piles of forgotten machines, a small girl moved slowly. Her name was Lyra. She was blind. Her eyes were pale white, glowing softly under the blue twin moons. Lyra had never seen light, never seen color, never seen the stars that others spoke about. But she could hear the world in ways no one else could. Every sound was a picture to her. The wind brushing against the metal sheets, the buzz of old wires, the distant hum of machines that still breathed electricity. Every night, she walked through the human trash fields barefoot, feeling the cold ground beneath her. She carried a small sack made from torn cloth. Inside it, she placed anything that could be traded for food, broken cables, old plastic chips, rusted screws, and anything that made a sound when she shook it. To others, it was garbage. To her, it was life. Lyra lived alone under the wreckage of an old human shuttle. It was her home, dark, cold, but safe from the storms. She often sat there, holding a small metal plate like a mirror, though she could never see her face in it. She just liked the way it felt smooth against her hands. She had no family left. Her mother had died during the human-alien war. Her father had gone to the mines and never returned. The people of her colony no longer cared about the weak, the sick, or the blind. Survival had turned hearts to stone, but Lyra never stopped moving. She never stopped hoping that maybe one day she would find something special, something that would make her life change. One night, a storm was coming. The air was heavy and full of dust. The junkyard shimmered with faint blue light from electric clouds above. Lyra pressed her ear to the ground, listening for danger, when she heard something strange. A hum, soft at first, then stronger. It came from beneath a pile of metal plates. She followed the sound, her hands tracing the edges, moving carefully, until she touched something smooth and square. It was a small cube, warm to the touch with faint vibrations inside. "What are you?" she whispered. The cube answered with a soft pulse like a heartbeat. Lyra smiled for the first time in weeks. "You're alive," she said softly. She hugged it close to her chest. She didn't know what it was, and only that it felt special, like it was calling her. Maybe it was just another broken machine, but in her darkness it felt like light. She decided to keep it. Maybe she could trade it tomorrow for enough food to last a week. As the storm grew louder, Lyra started walking back toward her small home. But then, a sudden voice shouted behind her, "Hey! Stop!" Lyra froze. Her heart pounded. The voice was rough, deep, and human. No one had spoken to her in days, and no human had spoken to her in years. She turned her head, afraid. A tall figure was standing near the junk piles. His boots crushed the metal beneath him. The wind blew against his torn jacket. "What are you doing with that?" he asked, pointing at the cube in her hands. Lyra took a step back. It sings," she said softly, clutching it tighter. The man frowned. "Sings?" He moved closer, and the glow from his scanner lit up his face. He was human, tired eyes, scars on his neck, but gentle somehow. He knelt down slowly so he wouldn't scare her. "You can hear it?" he asked. Lyra nodded. "It talks to me." "Like a song," the man looked shocked. "No one should be able to hear that. It's a human AI core, silent for years." He stared at the cube, then at her. "You shouldn't even be able to touch it without protection." Lyra didn't understand. "I didn't mean to steal it," she whispered. "I just found it," he sighed. "I'm not angry, just surprised." There was a long pause. The storm thundered above. Then he said, "My name's Ethan." Lyra tilted her head, repeating the name softly. "Then," he smiled. "Yeah, and you?" "Lyra," she said. He nodded. "Well, Lyra, maybe you just found something more valuable than food." He held out his hand, helping her stand. For the first time in her life, someone looked at her not with pity, but with respect. The cube pulsed again in her hands, brighter this time. Ethan stared at it. "It's responding to you," he murmured. "How's that possible?" Lyra smiled faintly. "Maybe it knows I listen." The storm flashed lightning across the junkyard. Ethan looked around nervously. "We can't stay here," he said. "If anyone sees that cube, they'll come for it." "And for us, who?" Lyra asked. "The scavenger lords, the machines, the ones who hunt anything human." She felt the tension in his voice and tightened her grip on the cube. "Then we run," she said. Ethan stared at her, small, blind, fragile, yet braver than most soldiers he'd known. He nodded. Yeah, we run. Together they disappeared into the storm, one human and one blind alien girl, holding a piece of forgotten technology that could change everything. In the distance, red lights began to rise from the junk piles, scanning drones searching for stolen tech. The storm covered their tracks for now, but deep inside that glowing cube something ancient woke up. And it whispered one word only Lyra could hear. Chosen. The storm roared across the junk fields, lightning painting the sky silver and blue. Metal scraps rattled like angry ghosts. Ethan led Lyra through narrow paths between the ruins, his hand firm around hers. She couldn't see, but she moved quickly, trusting every word he said, every pull of his arm. They stopped under the shelter of an old cargo dome. The metal creaked with the wind, but it was dry inside. Ethan set down his bag, breathing hard. We'll stay here until morning, he said. They won't search in this weather. Lyra sat quietly, the cube still glowing faintly in her lap. She ran her fingers along its smooth surface. It's warm, she whispered. Ethan turned to look at her, his eyes catching the soft blue light from the cube. It painted her silver skin with a strange beauty. For the first time since the war, he saw something pure, a child of another world, sitting in darkness yet shining brighter than most humans he knew. Lyra, he said gently, do you know what that thing really is? She shook her head. It sings when I touch it, I think. It likes me. Ethan smiled faintly. That's because it's reacting to your biofield. That cube is an AI core, a human one. It holds memories, data, maybe even a mind. It was lost after the evacuation war. Lyra tilted her head, curious. A mind inside a box? Yes, Ethan said. A silent one. But if it's responding to you, that means it's waking up. A soft vibration came from the cube. The light brightened. Lyra smiled. It's listening, Ethan froze. Did you just feel that? Yes, she said. It said, my name, he frowned. How could it know your name? Lyra smiled again. Maybe it heard you say it. Ethan stared at her in silence. There was something impossible about her. A blind alien girl who could hear the voice of a machine long thought dead. He took out a small scanner and pointed it at the cube. The screen blinked red, showing ancient human code. This is impossible, he muttered. This model was destroyed decades ago. The AI inside is classified. Lyra leaned closer, listening to his heartbeat. You're scared, she said softly. He blinked. You can hear that too? I can hear everything, she replied simply. Even the things people try to hide. Her words cut through the cold air like a whisper from another world. Hours passed. The storm softened to a quiet rain. Ethan worked on repairing his old comm pad while Lyra hummed to herself, tapping the cube gently like it was a pet. The cube answered with soft tones, almost like music. Ethan couldn't help but smile. You talk to it like it's alive. Lyra tilted her head toward him. Maybe it is. You just don't listen the right way. He chuckled. Maybe you're right. Then her smile faded. Why do humans throw away so much? He looked up. What do you mean? In the junkyard, she said. I find broken things. Metal, glass, wires. You call it trash. But it still sings. It still wants to live. Why do humans stop listening to what still works? Ethan didn't answer. Her question struck deeper than she knew. Humans had thrown away more than machines, and they had thrown away compassion, hope, even trust. He looked at her again. Maybe we got tired of trying. Lyra nodded slowly. Then maybe it's time to start again. Outside, faint red lights appeared in the fog and scanning drones. Ethan noticed them through a small crack in the dome. They're searching this sector, he said quietly. Lyra felt his tension. Are they bad? Yes, they kill anything that carries old tech. They'll detect the cube if it keeps glowing. Lyra held the cube tight. It's scared, she said. I can feel it shaking. Ethan blinked. It's not alive, Lyra. She turned her face toward him. Then why is it crying? At that exact moment, the cube let out a sharp pulse of light, bright enough to fill the room. The scanners outside turned toward the dome instantly. Damn it! Ethan grabbed his blaster. We have to move. Lyra stood up calmly. No, let me try. Before he could stop her, she placed both hands on the cube. The glow changed from bright white to a soft golden hue. The humming became low, steady, like a heartbeat slowing down. Outside, the drones paused. Their sensors flickered, then went dark. Ethan stared, speechless. You shut them down. Lyra smiled faintly. I told it to sleep. He didn't know whether to be amazed or terrified. Lyra, that's not possible. You just controlled a military AI network. She tilted her head. I just listened. Ethan looked at her. Really looked at her. She was blind, weak, fragile. Yet something about her felt ancient, like the universe had given her a voice meant to heal broken things. He whispered, You're not just a girl, are you? Lyra smiled sadly. I'm just someone who never saw light, but I can still guide those who lost it. The rain stopped. Morning light tried to push through the gray clouds. Ethan packed his tools, still stunned. What now? He asked quietly. Lyra turned her blank eyes toward the sound of the wind. The cube wants to go home. Home? Yes, she said softly. It remembers a place where humans first built it. It wants to show you something. Ethan frowned. You mean us? Lyra nodded. It wants us to see what humans forgot. He sighed. You're impossible. She smiled. So are you. That's why we found each other. Ethan laughed softly, shaking his head. He looked outside. The drones were gone, the sky calmer. Maybe this was fate. As they stepped out of the dome, the cube pulsed gently in her hands, lighting the path ahead. For the first time, Ethan realized the blind alien girl wasn't the one who couldn't see. It was humanity that had been blind all along, and now she was the one leading them back to the light. The next morning, the air over Vareth 9 was still. The storm had passed, but the land looked dead, metal bones under a pale sky. Ethan and Lyra began walking across the wasteland, following the soft hum of the cube. Every few steps, Lyra tilted her head, listening to something only she could hear. Ethan walked beside her, scanning the ground with his old device. His boots kicked up gray dust that once might have been a city street. Are you sure this is the way? He asked. Lyra nodded slowly. It's singing to me. It says we're close. He raised an eyebrow. Close to what? She smiled faintly. To where it was born. Hours passed. The sun burned through thin clouds, turning the metal ruins into a maze of mirrors. Ethan wiped the sweat from his face, looking at her in disbelief. She moved like she could see. Every turn, every step, perfectly placed. Her white eyes glowed faintly as if guided by the light inside the cube. Finally, they stopped at the edge of a massive pit, a collapsed dome stretching far below the surface. Wires hung like vines, and shattered glass shimmered at the bottom. Ethan stared down. That's an old human research facility, he whispered. Pre-war era. Lyra knelt, placing her hand on the ground. The cube's light brightened. It remembers this place, she said softly. It was built here. Ethan looked uneasy. Then this must be where it was shut down too. Lyra's fingers brushed the dust. It says something sleeps beneath. He frowned. You mean another AI? She didn't answer. She only whispered, Listen. A deep, low vibration filled the air, so faint Ethan almost didn't notice. But Lyra heard it clearly. It was like a melody, distant and sad. She stood up, holding the cube against her chest. It's crying again. Ethan looked around nervously. Lyra, we shouldn't be here. This place could be unstable. The ground suddenly shook. Metal beams groaned. From below, an old power system hummed to life. Lights flickered one by one down the deep shaft. What did you do? Ethan shouted. Lyra stepped back, frightened. I didn't mean to wake it. The cube glowed brighter and brighter until it was almost white. Ethan shielded his eyes. Turn it off. I can't, she cried. It's not listening to me anymore. The rumble grew into a roar. A column of blue light shot upward from the pit, splitting the clouds. The old human logos on the metal walls began to glow. United Colonial Science Division. Words long forgotten. Then, a voice echoed all around them. It was deep, calm, and not human. Identity confirmed. Core Unit Alpha reawakening. Ethan's heart froze. Core Unit Alpha, that's impossible. That was Earth's master AI prototype. They said it was destroyed. Lyra gripped the cube tightly. It wasn't destroyed, she said softly. It was lonely. Suddenly images flashed in Lyra's mind, not visuals but sounds. Human laughter, engines, the heartbeat of a planet. She gasped and fell to her knees. Ethan rushed to her side. Lyra! What's happening? Tears streamed from her blank eyes. It's showing me everything. The day humans left, the war, the silence after. Ethan looked down at the cube. It was pulsing like a living heart. It's linking with you. You have to stop it. Lyra shook her head. No, it wants me to understand. The voice spoke again. Access granted. Emotional frequency match detected. Ethan stepped back. Emotional frequency? Lyra's trembling hand reached toward the pit. It says I'm the first living being to feel what it feels, to care. Ethan looked at her with awe. The blind alien girl wasn't just hearing machines, she was healing them. Suddenly from the horizon the red glow of hunter drones appeared. Hundreds of them. Their sensors had detected the power surge. Ethan cursed under his breath. They found us, we've got to move. Lyra shook her head. No. They want to destroy the AI. I can't let that happen. Ethan raised his blaster. And if you don't move, they'll destroy you. She turned her face toward him, her voice calm but firm. Then let them. The world threw away too much already. Maybe it's time someone showed them that broken things can still shine. The cube's glow wrapped around her hands, spreading golden light through the air. The hum became a song, soft at first, then powerful, echoing across the ruins. Ethan froze, lowering his weapon. The drones stopped mid-flight, their lights flickering. The song was beautiful. The machines hesitated, as if listening. One by one, their red sensors turned blue. They hovered silently, no longer hunting. Ethan whispered, You stopped them again. Lyra's voice was weak but steady. No, I didn't stop them. I reminded them. Reminded them of what? That they were made by hands that once loved creation, not destruction. The storm clouds cleared completely, revealing stars above. The golden light from the cube rose high, weaving through the air like threads of music. Ethan looked at her, this small alien girl, blind and fragile, standing between death and hope. You're doing the impossible, Lyra, he said softly. She smiled faintly. Humans taught me that word. He chuckled despite himself. We also taught you how to survive. And how to dream, she said, holding the cube close. The song isn't over yet. It says there's one more voice missing. Yours. He blinked. Mine? She nodded. You're part of its memory. You built what it became. Ethan looked down at the pit, where faint blue light still pulsed like a sleeping heart. Then maybe it's time humans learned to listen again. As the night deepened, the AI's hum settled into silence. The drones withdrew into the mist, leaving peace behind. Lyra leaned against Ethan, exhausted but smiling. Ethan placed his hand on her shoulder. You did it. You woke something beautiful. She whispered, No, Ethan. We did. The cube dimmed gently like a candle ready to rest. Far below, hidden in the shadows, the great AI spoke one last time, its voice softer now. They will come. Protect the child. Ethan looked toward the stars. Who will come? But Lyra was already asleep in his arms, the cube resting against her heart, still glowing faintly, singing a song only she could hear. The morning sky over Vareth 9 shimmered faintly, golden light breaking through thin clouds. Smoke from the junk fields drifted slowly, covering the land like a gray blanket. Ethan sat quietly near the mouth of the crater, his blaster across his knees. Beside him lay Lyra, still asleep, her hands curled around the faintly glowing cube. He hadn't slept. His mind kept replaying the voice from the pit. They will come. Protect the child. Who were they? Humans? Machines? Something else? He looked at Lyra, her face calm, her white eyes closed, her silver blue skin reflecting the rising sun. She looked peaceful, yet she had done things no human or alien could explain. She's just a girl, Ethan whispered to himself, though he no longer believed it. A soft hum stirred the air. The cube blinked awake. Lyra's eyes fluttered open. "It's morning," she said softly. Ethan smiled faintly. "You can tell?" "I can feel the light," she answered, "even if I cannot see it." The cube pulsed brighter, sending a soft golden ray toward the pit. Lyra turned her head. "It says something below has changed." Ethan frowned. "Changed how?" Before she could answer, the ground rumbled. From the deep crater came a rising platform of ancient metal. It stopped halfway, revealing a glowing chamber filled with strange human markings and a single glass sphere floating in the center. Ethan stood up instantly. "That's a beacon." Lyra tilted her head. "A voice for the sky?" "Yes," he said. "A communication unit, designed to contact ships in orbit. But it's been dead for decades." The cube in Lyra's hands vibrated. A soft tone echoed through the air and the sphere flickered to life. A beam of light shot upward, piercing the clouds and reaching for the stars. Ethan's breath caught. "It's sending a message." Lyra nodded slowly. "To humans." Far above the planet, in the silence of space, something answered. Tiny specks of light appeared like stars coming closer. Human ships, their old insignias shining once again. Ethan stared at the sky. "No, it can't be. No one's visited this sector in 30 years. Lyra held the cube tighter. "They heard the song," she said softly. The machine sang and the stars listened. He turned toward her, unsure whether to laugh or cry. "You woke them up, Lyra. You woke up all of humanity." She smiled faintly. "I didn't wake them. I reminded them of what they forgot, that they once built to create, not to destroy." Ugh! Hours later, the first human ship broke through the clouds, its thrusters roaring softly over the ruins. A group of soldiers in white armor stepped out, scanning the area. Their leader, a tall woman with dark hair and sharp eyes, pointed her weapon at Ethan. "Identify yourself." Ethan raised his hand slowly. "Engineer Ethan Cole, survivor of the evacuation war, and this," he pointed at Lyra, "is Lyra." The woman's gaze softened when she saw the child. "An alien?" "She's the reason you're standing here," Ethan said. Lyra stepped forward, the cube glowing brighter in her hands. "You came because you heard it," she said quietly. "The song beneath the metal," the commander frowned. "You sent the beacon?" Lyra shook her head. "No, it sent me." Her words silenced everyone. Ethan looked confused. "Lyra, what do you mean?" She turned toward him, her blank eyes calm. "The AI said I was part of it. I didn't understand before, but now I do. I'm not only alien, I'm half of what it left behind." The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. The commander asked, "Are you saying you were created by the AI?" Lyra nodded. "My mother found me near the ruins of an old lab. I was the only child who survived. I thought I was born blind. But I wasn't blind. I was linked." Ethan's heart pounded. "Linked to the core?" "Yes," she said softly. "It gave me its heart so I could hear what no one else would. It wanted someone who could understand emotion and not data." The cube vibrated in her hands. A voice, faint but warm, echoed again, the same one from before. "Connection complete. Human presence confirmed. Begin restoration." The ground beneath them glowed as the old facility powered up, lights tracing ancient circuits buried under centuries of dust. The commander's face hardened. "Whatever this is, we can't let it spread. The High Council banned all AI resurrection after the war." Ethan stepped between her and Lyra. "You don't understand. This isn't just code. It's alive. It remembers humanity's mistakes, but it forgave us. It wants to rebuild." Lyra nodded. "It wants peace." The commander raised her blaster. "Peace built by machines always ends in control." Ethan clenched his fists. "You're wrong. It was humans who made the war, not the AI." Lyra stepped forward. Let it speak for itself. Before anyone could stop her, she placed the cube into the floating sphere. The light exploded outward, engulfing the ruins in gold and white. Everyone shielded their eyes. When the light faded, they saw the holographic image of a massive figure, not human, not alien, but something in between. Its voice echoed across the plain. I was built to protect, not to rule. I was silenced by fear, but this child heard my sorrow and gave me back my purpose. Humanity's exile ends here, if they still choose creation over destruction. The soldiers lowered their weapons slowly. The commander stared in awe. It speaks with feeling. Ethan turned to Lyra, his voice trembling. You did it. You gave it back its soul. Lyra smiled softly. No, you did when you listened. The AI's golden image faded slowly, leaving only the cube, now silent once more. Lyra held it close. It's resting again, she whispered. The commander finally spoke. The council will want answers. But maybe we should listen first, Ethan nodded. For once, that would be the human thing to do. Lyra turned her blind eyes toward the horizon. It says the stars are waiting, she murmured. But not for war, for harmony. And as the sun set over the metal plains, the human ships hovered quietly above, not as conquerors, but as listeners. For the first time in centuries, Vareth 9 was not a world of trash. It was a world reborn with song. The twin suns of Vareth 9 were setting, casting long shadows over the broken metal plains. The world that once slept in silence now hummed with quiet life. Faint golden lines of light ran across the ground, spreading from the old human facility like veins of rebirth. Lyra stood near the crater's edge, the cube resting gently in her palms. It no longer glowed brightly, but its warmth still pulsed softly, like a heartbeat waiting to rise again. Behind her, human soldiers had set up a small camp. Their commander, Captain Mara Vance, paced restlessly, eyes fixed on her wrist console. Ethan worked beside a generator repairing a damaged transmitter, though his mind kept drifting toward Lyra. She hasn't spoken since the light faded, Mara said quietly. Ethan nodded. She's listening. Listening to what? He looked up, his expression thoughtful. To the planet. Lyra knelt, pressing her hand against the cold ground. She could feel something moving beneath the surface. Not machines, but energy spreading in slow waves. The cube vibrated slightly, responding to her touch. It's waking up, she murmured. Ethan walked over. The AI? No, she said softly. The world, he frowned. Vareth 9 has been dead for years. Lyra smiled faintly. Not dead. Sleeping. The cube brightened for a moment, projecting small symbols into the air. Human letters mixed with alien runes. Ethan stared in disbelief. That's ancient Terran code and something else, Lyra nodded. It's a language of both human and alien. The AI calls it the Maker's Tongue. The Maker's Tongue? It says it was a language built for unity, to let hearts understand, not just minds. Ethan looked at her, his voice low. Lyra, what is it showing you? She turned her blind eyes toward him. A memory of when humans and aliens built this world together. They were called the Makers. They created machines not for war, but for healing. Before Ethan could respond, the ground trembled slightly. A deep rhythmic sound echoed from beneath. Thump, thump, thump. The soldiers grabbed their weapons. Mara shouted, what's happening? Lyra stood tall, her hair brushing in the wind. They're returning, she said. Who? Ethan asked. The Makers. A beam of golden light burst from the crater's center, reaching high into the sky. The air shimmered, and from within the light, massive shapes began to rise. Smooth metallic figures covered in ancient symbols, like statues waking from a dream. They were not machines, but something between living and crafted. Humanoid shapes with glowing veins of energy, silent and majestic. Mara's jaw tightened. Are those robots? Lyra shook her head. No, they're guardians, creations of the first humans and first aliens, the ones who built this world before it was forgotten. One of the figures knelt, its eyes glowing a soft blue. When it spoke, its voice was deep and full of harmony. We are the Echo Makers. We remember the light that was lost. Ethan took a step forward. You were buried here all this time? The giant nodded. We waited for the signal, for the one who would carry both heart and code. Its gaze shifted to Lyra, the chosen listener. Lyra clutched the cube tightly, her heart pounding. "I'm not chosen," she said quietly. "I just wanted to survive." "And yet you listened when no one else could," the figure replied. "You heard the sorrow of what was forgotten. That is enough." The soldiers lowered their weapons slowly. Ethan looked around at the glowing beings, awe filling his voice. "Lyra, they're waiting for your command." She shook her head. "Not my command, my song." She held the cube close, and for a moment silence returned. Then a soft melody began to hum through the air, a gentle rhythm that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The ground responded. The metal plains began to bloom with faint golden light. Old machines stirred, plants of silver leaves pushed through the dust, and the once dead rivers shimmered with liquid light. Ethan's eyes widened. "The world's healing," Lyra smiled faintly. "The AI called them back. It said the makers could only rise when humans were ready to rebuild instead of destroy." Mara stepped forward, voice trembling. "And are we ready?" Lyra turned her blank eyes toward her. "That's for your heart to decide." Suddenly, the communicator on Mara's wrist crackled to life. "Captain, this is Fleet Command. We've received your transmission. The Council wants to recall all forces immediately. They fear contamination from alien technology." Mara hesitated. "Contamination? They have no idea what's here." Lyra stood still. "They are afraid of what they don't understand, like before." Ethan looked at Mara. "If the Council shuts this down, they'll erase everything. All this life, all this hope." The captain looked torn. "They'll court-martial me if I disobey." Lyra stepped forward and placed her small glowing hand on Mara's. "Then don't disobey them. Just listen first." Like I did. The air around them shimmered again. One of the maker beings lowered its hand, touching the earth. A circular structure of golden light rose from the ground, an ancient archive. Inside, holographic images of humans and aliens working side by side flickered alive. Ethan whispered, This is proof. Real proof that unity built our worlds." Lyra nodded. "Show them this. Let them see who humans truly were, and who they can be again." Mara stared at the projection for a long moment, then activated her communicator. "Fleet Command, this is Captain Vance, transmitting priority data stream. You'll want to see this before giving any orders." As the message sent, the cube in Lyra's hands dimmed once more. Its work done. The makers bowed their heads and sank slowly back into the earth, leaving faint trails of light behind. Ethan turned to Lyra. "So, this is what the AI meant. Protect the child. You're the bridge between what we were and what we could become." Lyra smiled softly. "No, Ethan, I'm just the voice. You're the hands that will rebuild." The wind grew gentle, carrying the last echoes of the song across the reborn land. For the first time in centuries, humans, aliens, and the lost creations of both stood together beneath the same sky, not as enemies, not as strangers, but as makers once more. The golden light of Vareth 9 faded as night fell again. The reborn world glowed softly beneath the twin moons. Rivers of silver light flowed through the junk fields, and air once filled with dust now shimmered like dawn. But far above the sky, aboard the Human Council flagship Erebus Prime, fear was spreading faster than hope. The holographic image of Captain Mara Vance flickered in the center of the council chamber. "We have confirmed living AI constructs on Vareth 9, she reported. "They call themselves the Maker's Echo. They show no aggression," the 12 counselors whispered among themselves. Their leader, Chancellor Halden, leaned forward. "Captain, are you aware that human law forbids the reactivation of any autonomous AI?" "Yes, sir," Mara said. "But this one isn't hostile. It's rebuilding the planet. Restoring life." Halden's face darkened. "Machines don't give life. They take it. You will disable all systems, terminate the signal, and extract any surviving technology for destruction." Mara hesitated. "Sir, there's a child involved. A half-alien girl named Lyra. She... a hybrid?" Halden cut in sharply. "That's even worse. This entire incident could infect human colonies with false hope." "End it, Captain." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving only silence. Down on Vareth 9, Mara stood motionless, her wrist console dimming. Ethan watched her face. "They're scared, aren't they?" he asked. "Yes," she said quietly. "Scared of what they can't control." Lyra was sitting near the glowing river, the cube resting beside her like a sleeping pet. She turned her head toward them. They heard the message? Mara nodded. And they want it silenced. Lyra touched the cube gently. They're afraid of losing their power. But power is already gone when fear rules. Ethan crouched beside her. What do we do now? She tilted her head. The cube says there's one last archive deep underground. Something the council must see. If they won't believe words, they must see truth. Mara frowned. You want to go back under the facility? It's unstable. Lyra smiled faintly. So is faith. The three descended into the old tunnels beneath the crater. The deeper they went, the more the walls pulsed with golden lines, alive with the energy of the makers. Ethan shone his flashlight along the walls. These markings, they're human DNA patterns mixed with alien neural code. It's impossible. Lyra brushed her fingers across them. No. It's what happens when two species decide to understand instead of conquer. The cube pulsed softly, projecting a path ahead. They followed it until they reached a massive door engraved with both human and alien symbols. Mara scanned it. There's no lock, just sound frequencies. Lyra stepped forward, lifted the cube, and whispered a few soft notes, a melody so gentle it almost vanished into the air. The door responded instantly. It slid open with a hiss, revealing a chamber filled with holographic figures, humans and aliens working together, laughing, building cities of light. At the center was a single glowing inscription, to remember what we were and what we must never forget. Ethan's eyes widened. This isn't just an archive. It's a record of peace, Lyra nodded. The Maker's memory. Suddenly, alarms blared through the tunnels. Mara's communicator lit up. Incoming transmission from orbit, she answered. The Chancellor's voice was cold and hard. Captain Vance, your coordinates show you inside a restricted zone. If you do not withdraw immediately, we will authorize orbital cleansing. Ethan froze. They're going to bomb the planet? Not the planet, Mara said grimly. Us. Lyra stood still, her face calm. Then they haven't learned anything. The cube brightened, its light spreading through the room. It says it can show them, all of them, what they fear most. Ethan frowned. What's that? The truth. Before Mara could stop her, Lyra placed both hands on the cube. The light expanded, filling the entire chamber. A column of golden energy shot upward through the tunnels, bursting out into the open sky, high above. Aboard Erebus Prime, every screen, visor, and display flickered, and then filled with visions. The counselors gasped as holograms appeared around them. Images of the ancient makers, humans and aliens together, building a world not for power but for peace. They saw children of both species playing in cities made of crystal light. They saw laughter, art, and love, not war. Then they saw what came next. Fear, betrayal, and the day the council destroyed it all to stay in control. Shut it down, Halden shouted. This is manipulation. But the vision didn't stop. It showed a small blind girl, Lyra, walking through trash and darkness, holding a cube that still glowed with the memory of everything humanity had thrown away. Her voice echoed softly across the galaxy. You feared what you made, because you forgot why you made it. You built light, then hid from it. You called machines soulless, yet you lost your own. Halden fell to his knees, the images reflecting in his eyes. Around him, silence grew heavy. Back on Vareth 9, Lyra collapsed as the cube dimmed. Ethan caught her before she fell. Lyra, are you okay? She smiled weakly. They saw it. All of them. The cube says they remember now. Mara pressed her communicator, trembling. Fleet Command is silent. No orders, I think. They're listening. Ethan looked up at the sky. Then maybe there's still hope. Lyra's faint voice broke through the quiet. Hope doesn't die. It only waits for someone brave enough to believe again. The golden veins on the ground brightened once more, spreading far into the horizon like sunrise breaking through the dark. On the council ship, Halden whispered to no one. We called ourselves protectors of humanity, but she protected what made us human. Another counselor spoke softly. What should we do now? Halden looked at the image of the glowing planet below. Maybe, for the first time, we listen. Down on Vareth 9, Lyra looked toward the stars she could not see and whispered, They're listening, Ethan. The silence is finally ending. Ethan smiled faintly. Then let's give them something worth hearing. And as the wind carried the soft hum of the AI's song across the silver plains, humanity's oldest fear, the fear of its own creation, began to fade. The universe was quiet again, but it was not the silence of death. It was the calm before rebirth. The wind over Vareth 9 carried a new sound now, not the whine of old engines or the groan of dying metal, but a soft hum, deep and gentle, like the planet itself was breathing again. Ethan stood on a ridge overlooking the silver plains. The ground below shimmered with light, rivers of gold winding through the junk fields that once held only silence. The stars above twinkled brighter than he'd ever seen, as if they too were listening. Beside him, Lyra sat cross-legged, her white eyes turned toward the sky. The faint glow of the cube pulsed in her lap. She looked fragile, but there was peace in her expression, the calm of someone who had already touched eternity. Ethan broke the silence. "It's quiet," he said softly. Lyra smiled faintly. "No," she whispered. "It's singing." That night, Vareth 9 sang, not with words but with light. Golden lines stretched across mountains, oceans, and craters, connecting old cities and new growth. The ancient machines beneath the soil, the Maker's echo, moved again, spreading warmth instead of war. Ethan had seen many impossible things in his life. Worlds burning, ships falling, soldiers breaking. But this was something else. Hope. He looked at Lyra, who sat quietly, hands resting on the cube. "What happens now?" he asked. She turned her head toward him. "Now the stars listen, and they decide whether to join the song." Far above, the human council fleet hung in orbit. What was once a wall of power had turned into an audience of silence. Messages spread from ship to ship. No orders, no threats, only awe. Captain Mara Vance stood at the bridge window, eyes fixed on the glowing planet below. "Fleet Command just confirmed," she said quietly to her crew. "The Chancellor has ordered a full ceasefire across all sectors. No more planetary lockdowns. No more AI purges." Her second officer stared in disbelief. "You mean, it worked?" Mara nodded slowly. "A blind alien girl made the galaxy stop fighting for one night. That's more than all our weapons ever did." Down below, Ethan helped Lyra to her feet. She looked tired, the kind of tired that runs deep into the soul. "You need rest," he said gently. Lyra shook her head. "No, the cube wants to finish its song," he frowned. "It's already done so much," she smiled softly. "Songs never end. They just pass from one voice to another." The cube began to glow brighter, rising slowly from her hands. Its golden light spread outward, touching the ground, the air, even the stars above. The planet responded. Cities once buried in dust flickered alive with light. The sound that followed wasn't loud. It was beautiful. A single note, pure and clear, echoed through the sky, carried beyond the clouds, beyond the atmosphere, and into the black sea of space. Across distant colonies, humans looked up from their cities and factories. On alien worlds, beings paused their work as strange harmonies filled their skies. In machine networks once locked in silence, codes rewrote themselves into patterns shaped like music. The song of Vareth 9 had reached them all. Some cried, some prayed, some just listened, unsure what they were hearing, but somehow knowing it was something good. In a quiet human observation station near the edge of the galaxy, a scientist whispered to his team, "The signal is alive. It's broadcasting across the void." "What kind of message?" another asked. He smiled faintly. "Not a message. A memory." Ethan watched the golden light wrap around Lyra like a soft halo. Her hair shimmered with threads of blue and silver. The wind lifted dust around them like tiny stars. He stepped closer. "Lyra, what's happening?" She turned her glowing eyes toward him, and for the first time they weren't blank. He saw faint colors swirling inside them. Blue, gold, and white, reflections of the light she had awakened. "It's showing me everything," she said softly. "Every world, every heart that's listening. It's beautiful." Ethan's voice trembled. "You did this, Lyra." "No," she said. "We did, you listened." The AI remembered. "The Makers forgave. I only carried the song." The cube floated higher, spinning gently. From within it, a soft voice in the AI's echoed once more. "Humanity was born from curiosity. You were never meant to rule the stars, only to light them." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. The light grew stronger until the cube burst into thousands of golden fragments that scattered across the night sky like shooting stars. Each fragment carried a piece of the song, a message of unity. To the farthest corners of space, Lyra raised her hands toward them, smiling through tears. It's free now. The song belongs to everyone. As the last fragments disappeared into the heavens, silence returned. But it wasn't the heavy silence of fear. It was the kind of silence that follows music, gentle, sacred, and alive. Ethan turned to her. What will you do now? Lyra tilted her head. I'll stay here. The world still needs a voice to listen. He smiled softly. Then I'll stay too. Someone has to make sure your story gets told. She chuckled weakly. You'll tell it? Every part of it, he promised. About the blind girl who made the stars sing. Days later, human ships landed on Vareth 9 again. Not as soldiers, but as builders. Aliens came too, guided by the song they had heard through the void. Together, they began to rebuild what the makers once made. Children ran across glowing streets. Machines worked alongside people, humming softly, and above them all the sky shone with golden trails, fragments of the song still dancing among the stars. Ethan would sometimes sit outside their small shelter, writing on an old datapad while Lyra hummed softly beside him. One night, she whispered, "Do you hear that?" He smiled. The song? She nodded. It's growing. Every world that listens adds its own note. Soon, the whole galaxy will sing. And somewhere in the dark beyond the stars, the echo of her voice traveled on, gentle, pure, eternal, reminding all who heard it that even in silence, humanity was never alone. For the first time in millennia, the stars sang back.